Why is it that no matter how much effort you put into decorating, your apartment still doesn't feel designed? You rearrange, add artwork, swap out lamps, but something still feels off. Well, in this video, I'll show you the fastest ways to make your apartment look like a designer styled it, from the textures you mix to the way you layer light. And at the end, I'll reveal the one finishing touch that ties it all together, the subtle move designers use to make any space feel complete. So the fastest way to make an apartment look designer is to mix in something with a bit of age. And that's because a single vintage piece can change the whole rhythm of a room. Suddenly it feels collected, not like everything was bought at the same time. And those old pieces add texture, warmth, and that quiet sense of story that new furniture never has. You know, it's that instant depth that makes your space look styled, even if everything else is simple. And so here, that depth starts with this old console table next to the window. Right? The dark, worn finish instantly grounds the pale walls, while the rough clay vase and leafy greens bring the whole area to life. And so the mix of textures here, of aged wood, matte pottery, and the soft foliage, gives the setup a quiet richness. And even the stack of books beside it adds some balance and height, which keeps the focus on the table's character instead of cluttering it up. And we've got the same idea playing out here on the sideboard, topped with these pleated lamps. Right? Their warm shades glow against the deep wood, and it just creates that cozy, collected mood that designers are always talking about. And the small couple pieces of art above keep the energy light so the setup doesn't feel too formal. But really what makes this work is the contrast, right? The red lamps are playful, the cabinet is more serious, but together they make the space feel layered in the best possible way. Now here you can see how a vintage rug brings that same feeling from the ground up. Its faded weave softens every line in the room, and it just ties together all the different wood tones around it. That hint of age in the pattern breaks the stiffness of any new furniture around it and gives warmth without adding any visual noise. And so you barely notice the rug at first, but it's actually what makes the whole scene feel finished. And then this one I absolutely love, right? The pairing of the mid-century lounge chair with this classic wooden dresser shows how old and new can easily share the same space. The dresser's brass hardware and curved drawers add this quiet sense of history, while the chair's shape keeps things modern. And so together they hit the perfect balance, right? The nostalgia of something inherited with the freshness of something chosen. So it's that mix that makes an apartment look designed, not just decorated. So after you've mixed in a bit of vintage into your space, the next fastest way to elevate it is through scale. And specifically, I'm talking about big pieces of art, because they immediately pull the eye up and give structure and calm to your space in a single move. They frame the furniture, balance empty walls, and make a room feel designed even if the rest of it is really basic. And so a single large piece can shift an entire space from blank to intentional faster than any color of paint ever could. So here are a few different ways to do it. If you want a classic look, then hang a large framed piece that fills the wall behind your main piece of furniture. In this case, we've got one sitting perfectly behind the dining table, which turns a plain wall into a full composition. The size alone creates a ton of interest, and the rich tones echo the warmth of the wood and brass in the surrounding furniture. And even the green rug below feels anchored because of the art above it. And so you don't need multiple frames. You just need a single statement piece that tells your story. But you can definitely take a bolder route as well, where the art itself is bringing energy into the space, right? So the big colorful painting you see at the end of the room here immediately becomes the heartbeat of this room. The brushwork and vibrant tones give life to everything around it, and even if the furniture here was simple, it would suddenly feel totally intentional. But what keeps it from being overwhelming is the grounding from the natural materials, right? The leather chair, the woven rug, and the touches of wood. And so when scale meets texture like this, the space feels designed in an instant. But then again, if you prefer a more relaxed or casual setup, then you can also go for fabric art. So hanging a textile or a woven piece instantly adds warmth and softness that framed art usually can't. And so this one leans modern and playful with some abstract shapes that break up the flatness of the wall. And you can hang it high like a tapestry, or you can clip it casually for a looser feel. The best part is it looks great without feeling cluttered, and you can swap it out easily when you just want a bit of a change. Or if you prefer something clean and minimal, then a large scale print in black and white brings a quiet kind of power. In this case, the oversized frame and the generous white border give this a ton of space to breathe, and so it's bold without shouting, but it's also calm without being dull. And so when you pair it with simple wood furniture, the whole setup feels sharp and really modern. Now, once your larger pieces feel right, it's time to tighten up the small moments, the details that make everything look considered. And that's because quick, curated setups add a ton of rhythm to a room, and they create small stories that connect the bigger elements together, right? They take just a few minutes, but they look deliberate, and they turn empty surfaces into styled scenes. And as you'll see here, this is a designer trick for adding a ton of polish without spending a dime. So a great place to start here is with your center table. Add a tray to hold any small, loose things like a candle, lighter, maybe a small vase with some flowers, because that single tray keeps the setup clean while still feeling warm. Stack a few coffee table books next to it and top them with something textured like stones or wood, just to break up the polish and make things look a little more natural. Because the mix of rough and smooth surfaces creates quiet contrast that looks good from every angle. Then you want to move to your console table or sideboard. And this is where symmetry meets height, right? You can balance a strong lamp on one side and a tall vase of flowers or branches on the other, and then layer in a mirror behind it if you can, because that'll bounce light and double the visual height of your space. Just don't overthink this. 3 main items in varying heights are all it takes for a space to look styled, not staged. Next up is your shelf or bookcase, and here you want to treat each level as its own little story. So mix some vertical pieces like vases or jars with horizontal stacks of books to keep the rhythm varied. And leave some open space so it doesn't feel cluttered, right? Negative space is what gives everything room to breathe. And so a few organic shapes and natural textures like ceramic or wood, these are gonna make the whole thing feel balanced and lived in. And finally, bring it into the bedroom. Keep your nightstand set up calm and minimal, so a lamp, a small vase, and a book or candle is plenty to have on there. The trick is to create warmth without crowding the space. Use soft light and natural materials like rattan or linen so the setup feels restful at the end of the day. Because even the smallest corner can look considered when everything has a place and there's a little bit of intention behind it. Now, once the furniture and styling feel balanced, the next layer is injecting some life. Because greenery changes the mood faster than anything else. It softens corners, connects colors, and adds movement that no object is able to. And you don't need much, to be honest. A single plant placed right can shift how the whole room feels. And that's why designers use plants as one of their final touches to make a space look lived in, but still elevated at the same time. So I like to start with a single tall piece that instantly grounds the space. So a slim olive tree or an indoor ficus in a heavy pot adds some height and gives structure to any plain wall. And then position it to where the light naturally falls, because that small shift makes everything around it look brighter and more intentional. And even one plant placed next to a piece of art or a mirror instantly changes how finished your space feels. And then bring that same idea to your dining area. A simple vase of green branches on the table can do more for your setup than any centerpiece. It breaks up all the symmetry, adds a bit of movement, and gives the space the feeling that it's been styled for a photo shoot. And this works especially well when the leaves echo the tones that are already in the room, like these deep greens that are blending with the velvet chairs and the wood walls. In the living room, you want to try layering a few different types of plants together. So here, a leafy tree in the corner is working alongside the dried stems on the table and the fresh sprigs on the side. And so the mix of textures keeps the look dynamic because the dried pieces add warmth and patina, while the live greens keep the space feeling fresh. And that combination is exactly what stylists do to make rooms feel collected, not like they were curated in a single day. And then finally, add a few subtle touches in your kitchen. A small branch beside the sink or a potted herb near your cutting board instantly makes the space feel styled, but still practical. Because you're not decorating, you're layering signs of life. And the moment your greens blend naturally into your daily routines, that is when your home starts to look like it's been professionally designed. Now, once your space feels alive, you want to shift your focus to how it feels to the touch. Because swapping hardware is one of the quickest, smartest designer moves because it's small, but it completely changes the tone of your room. So I'm talking about door handles, pulls, and light switches because that's what your hands meet every day. And so when they look and feel refined, your entire home feels more elevated. So if you like a warm, classic look, then you want to go for aged brass or brushed gold. They add an instant sense of richness and pair beautifully with creamy or taupe cabinetry, and you can see here how the rounded shapes soften the lines of the drawers make the whole setup look custom instead of like it's a rental. Or if you prefer a sleeker, more modern vibe, then matte black handles might be the better option. They create this really sharp contrast, especially against lighter surfaces, and they instantly make old cabinets feel much newer. The linear texture you see here adds a bit of grip and depth, so it still feels thoughtful and tactile, not flat or mass-produced. Now, if your goal is quiet luxury, then you want to try polished brass or satin gold against a wood grain. The smooth finish and rounded form feel expensive without trying too hard. And this follows the same principle as designer furniture. Clean lines, perfect proportions, and no unnecessary details. And if you prefer something with a bit more character, then you can use darker bronze or iron finishes. These pieces work best on textured or wood cabinets, and they bring a handcrafted, timeless feel. And the slight patina makes them look aged, as if they've always been part of the furniture, which is exactly the kind of detail designers rely on to give a sense of depth quickly. Now, once the details and finishes are all refined, it's time to pull the whole room together through light. And obviously, your windows set the tone for everything here, and so the right treatment instantly makes your space feel designed. Because curtains and shades don't just block light, they frame how it enters your space, shaping how all the other colors and materials in your home show up throughout the day. So if you love a soft, airy look, go for full-length sheers that let in a ton of soft, diffuse light. And you want to hang them as high and wide as possible so the windows feel larger. For example, notice how the sheer panels here give off a quiet, gallery-like glow. There's no heavy fabric, just movement and softness that make the whole setup feel calm and expensive at the same time. Now, if you prefer a layered, cozy effect, then you can combine sheers with heavier drapes. And this works best in bedrooms or spaces where you want warmth, but also some privacy. The neutral palette that you see in this setup keeps the look tonal, while the double layer adds depth and hotel-like polish. And so even when the curtains are drawn, the folds still bring texture and rhythm to the wall. Now, if you prefer a more structured, tailored look, then try linen or cotton curtains on visible rods. The slight wrinkle of those natural fabrics adds a bit of lived-in charm, while the exposed hardware gives it that designer intentional feel. It's an easy way to make even rental windows look custom-made. And for a more minimal, modern approach, go with Roman shades. They frame the window cleanly without overpowering it, which is perfect for small bedrooms or something like a study corner. Just make sure that you keep the color close to your wall tone so the light filters through evenly. It's a clean, subtle move that looks professionally planned, even though it just takes a few minutes to install. So now that you've got a newly beautiful home, you want to make sure you can always sleep peacefully in it, and that means making a few small changes to your bed. It's the visual anchor of your entire bedroom, and so when your bed looks intentional, everything else follows. You don't need to change furniture or wall color, just layer your bedding in a way that feels full and balanced. Because once the bed looks styled with clean folds, a few textures, and tones that tie in with the room, the whole space suddenly feels designed from top to bottom. So if you like a warm, tonal look, then try layering neutral shades from light to dark. The mix of cream, beige, and cocoa you see here creates this quiet contrast without any bold color. And this palette makes the room feel cohesive and calm, while still looking rich and layered. And even small touches like matte pillowcases or some striped linen can instantly make your bed feel styled. Now, for a more classic, soft luxury, stack your pillows high and add a single long lumbar pillow across the front of the bed. It's a small styling move that instantly makes the bed feel finished. And keeping the palette muted helps it stay timeless, while the layering adds dimension and depth. This is the kind of setup that feels like a boutique hotel, which is effortless but still elevated. And if you prefer a minimal European style setup, then keep the palette simple and focus on materials. A lightweight textured blanket over some smooth linen sheets adds just enough contrast. The folds stay relaxed, not pressed, which keeps the setup from feeling too stiff or overthought. And it's that easy mix of comfort and refinement that designers love, because it feels lived in and intentionally styled. So now you know how a few smart design moves can make any apartment feel like it was styled by a designer. No renovation, no overhaul, just intention layered over what you already own. And I've linked a few other videos in the description that build on these same ideas, so if you want to keep transforming your space, then you'll find those there. But there's something interesting that happens once your apartment starts looking designed, which is a shift from how things are styled to what you actually bring into your home. Because at a certain point, the difference between put together and professionally styled isn't about more effort. It's about having better pieces. So watch this next video where I'll show you the exact products designers secretly buy from IKEA and how those simple choices can make your home feel effortlessly high-end without spending any more money. I'll see you there.